Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chrism, and I'd like to invite you to this conversation about your Kundalini awakening experiences. And today we have a special guest, aside from our normal special guest, which would be the next person that I'm going to introduce. And before I introduce her, I would like to give thanks for all the help that she does on the many groups that she belongs to on the internet. This is Santara Kundalini. And Santara is a prolific writer, and she helps, through her Kundalini, many people. And she helps to put on this program. This program is a product of her and others who are helping to bring this information out. So I would like to say, first of all, thank you to Santara. And I would like to bring her on board. Hello, Santara. Come on in.
Hello, Chrism. I'm in.
Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Are you
it's good to be here.
Is it nice weather in Ireland?
Is it ever?
Yeah.
It's actually, well, it is when you're around. Isn't this true? Yeah, it's sunny, cold, raining. We've had lots of floods, but it's springtime and I'm enjoying it.
Ah, well, indeed it is, and it's springtime here as well. Very, very beautiful. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is out. The leaves are open. Everybody seems to be engaging life in a very positive way, and I just want to say thank you for the many things that you do to bring this program to life, Santara.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good to be here. Hi to everyone in the chat room. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, taking you into the blue. And I would like to introduce another special guest that we have this afternoon. She is calling from the 360 area code. And Elizabeth, is this you?
Yep.
Hey, well, I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to welcome you to the program. I would like to welcome your Kundalini and Aranya to the program as well. And if you could give a little bit of background about what you're going to talk about this afternoon.
Okay. Well, you'd asked me to talk about anything that, teaching that she had brought through this week. And Monday night, I woke up in the middle of the night, like I usually do, but this time I just felt like I should go to the computer and sit down, and this whole thing just started to come, and she titled it, and it just went on and on. So hopefully it's not, too long. I'll try to get through it fairly quickly so I don't take up too much time. But she titled it, Stop Putting Limits on Yourself. And it just happened to, like you always say, the Kundalini knows us better than we know ourselves. It's so true, because then 2 days later, yesterday, I had an incident that happened, and it hugely helped me with that. So I'm going to share it, hoping that maybe it could help others. So here it is. So stop putting limits on yourself, on what you think, on what you believe, on what you think you know to be true, on who you think you are and how you should be. So many other realities exist, too many to realize, so many layers of existence, so many life forms, creatures, scenarios, too many to count. Infinite possibilities all happening simultaneously. Even on this illusory planet, in this physical plane, so many unknown, overlooked, unnoticed. For instance, the oceans teeming with life and the infinite realms Oh, the infinite realms. So many realities, even from your narrow perspective, as life is and was created from them. What about the waters? How little you really know. Stop putting limits on yourself. Non-humans, humans, corporeal, incorporeal, they cannot even begin to be counted. When you start to worry about your small status or fate, try instead to begin to enlarge your thinking perspective and include all the things that cannot be known, cannot be counted, and you will no longer worry so much. Stop putting limits on what you think is real. Right in this moment, all is perfect, all is God-given, all is self, but all is not self. The little things do not matter. The trillions upon trillions of millennium and eternal vastness of God are not concerned with such trivial things. Eternity is not concerned with such things. There is no such thing as time. The 1,000,000 trillion other things that you think are happening every nanosecond also do not matter. Small worries of the ego mind do not matter in the least. They do not exist outside of your mind. You are creating them. You are all creating them, and you all share the universal consciousness, dreaming them into existence. Change your thoughts, and your world instantly changes. Your mind instantly changes. All that is true, but more of you need to change your thinking. With the Kundalini, you can begin to expand on this. Expand your level of perception to include the myriad things and also nothing. Expand your consciousness. The Kundalini is expanding your consciousness on so many levels, but you have to start to embrace this and think outside of the box, so to speak, and stop putting limits on yourself, always moving, always changing, always seeing the greater picture that is happening on so many levels of consciousness. Feel the sound, see the frequencies, hear the colors, taste the colors, smell the colors, and sing with the wind. See the other dimensions like Chrism. Look into the mist. See what you have not dared to see, to feel before. Let the Kundalini expand you, grow you in conscious awareness. All around you and inside of you. Go through those doors now and begin to push those limits that you think are there, who you think you are. Stop thinking so much. Stop thinking of the trivial things. Learn from everything, every situation, every scenario. Stop destroying yourselves and start expanding yourselves in every moment. All of you create with the divine within you and start to change this world. Stop putting limits on yourself with your limited thoughts, your fears, and your judgments of yourself. Stop putting limits on everything and see the beauty in everything, and especially the beauty in nothing. And that's it.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I got kicked off. I got kicked off of the air there right at the beginning, and I missed some of the beginning. But did it basically follow the same line as what I've just been listening to?
Yes. It's basically
okay.
just she keeps saying it, I think, telling me in different ways the same thing.
Right. Okay. So basically she's saying to expand yourself beyond your perceived limitations.
Yes.
Right. Well, give me your take on that, Elizabeth.
Well, I mean, my take is that
how does it affect you in your daily living?
Well, it affected me in a huge way. Right afterwards, when I got up and began to walk back to my room in the middle of the night, there was suddenly what looked like eyes everywhere, just infinite eyes in every direction of the space around me, above me, in front of me, multi-directional, like just unending in every direction. And so I tried not to think, like she said, to try to limit or try to figure out what it was or why it was there or why all of a sudden I'm walking through this. So I just tried to observe it, and I tried to walk around through it and tried to feel it and just be in it. And it didn't move when I would move my hands through it. It just remained constant, but it just stayed there, and I walked around in it for a while, and I think she was just showing me another reality, and then I just walked down the hallway, and it kept going, but then when I got to my room and I laid down, I just went right back, I fell right back to sleep, but it was just there till I got in bed and went back to sleep. So there was that. But then, literally 2 days later, an incident happened that just would have been something I would have overthought to death. I would have tortured myself over it, and it would have been a really hurtful situation potentially. And her words just came back to me, and I was hurt, and I did, feel the pain of it, but I was able to take it's not important. And it was something that even you were asking me during a lesson, during Skype, and you asked me if it was important, this thing that had happened, and literally she said, it's not important. Let it go. It's just not important in relation to everything else that's actually going on. The little things, the trivial things, the human things just really aren't so important.
Like what color my underwear are. things like that. Rosemary has a problem with my orange underwear, and so I just and they're the kind of underwear, they're not the little bikini things, they're the kind of things you can walk around the house in without, exposing so much. So that's how she would have been exposed to them in the first place. So that's not important, right?
Right.
Now, the eyes, I think, are a very important quality that doesn't get discussed here too much. The eyes that you describe are also. Do you remember if they were all colored blue? Was it all blue eyes?
I don't recall. I know that they were just glowing. I don't really remember if the background was blue or if the eyes were blue. There was so many of them that they kind of all blend together. So
Sure.
It appeared like they were, I don't know, like more white with blue background. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that when people do pure dimethyltryptamine or, DMT, often they're taken to a place where they're surrounded by eyes. And typically they're blue eyes. Down there in Peru, when you and I and others went for the ayahuasca ceremony, I saw a large structure completely composed of thousands and thousands of eyes. Like an obelisk composed all of eyes. And I think that at one time asks a very interesting question, and it answers a lot of questions as well. I mean, it answers the questions of, do we ever really truly have privacy? And that would be no. We do not have privacy. As we walk and talk and dance the dance of life inside of our five senses and only really trusting our five senses, we're not really aware of all the other levels of consciousness that expand outside of a five-sense equation. And they're watching. This is entity land, or the astral, or, whatever, second world, whatever you want to call it. Entities get to watch what you do. They may not get to interact with what you do, but they get to watch what you do. But also so does enlightened consciousness, which I think these eyes, Elizabeth, are representing enlightened consciousness and inviting you and other people who experience them to come into that expression. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You know, I forgot to do a sound check with the people in the chat room, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Mary Jean, Vincent, or C.L. Morgan, and Lana Seeger, can you let me know by typing whether the sound is coming through clearly or not? Please, when you get a second there. I know that the sound has to reach you first. And Mary Jean says it's good sound. Okay, thank you. So yeah, Elizabeth, I think that the blue eyes are very, very important. And Vincent says the sound is good, and I'm hoping that the sound is good for Mr. Morgan as well. And yeah, okay, good. So, you know, when you're in these areas and you're understanding that everything has consciousness, the rocks, the stones, the dirt, the plants, the animals, the insects, the fish, the birds, the mammals, everybody has consciousness. Well, if you add upon that layer of consciousness a huge layer of discarnate consciousness, and the discarnate consciousness, you know, very similar to say physical-based consciousness, will have gradients of enlightenment within them, and just like different types of sand or seeds will settle into a very specific pattern, like a sedimentary pattern, so do the enlightenment qualities of an individual consciousness also settle in to a very specific level of enlightenment that they're expressing at this time. We don't have privacy. There is no such thing as privacy. You're seen every time you go to the bathroom, every time you take a shower, every time you're making love with a spouse or whoever. You know, you're seen in your good moments, your mediocre moments, your bad moments, your beautiful moments, your loving moments. You're seen in all these areas. Now, I mean, not all consciousness is really interested in watching you get dressed. Uh-oh, I'm going to put you in the blue here, Elizabeth. Not all consciousness is interested in that. But you need to understand that you are seen all the time by any consciousness that wants to see you. You're not given a shield. Nobody's given a shield. Nobody's given a like a paper gown that they give you in the doctor's office, which to me is about as silly as you can get. But yeah, I mean, you're not given any of these coverings because the privacy does not exist. The unwillingness to be seen is more of the ego than it is of the enlightened aspect of the individual. I've got you back in the red there, Elizabeth. Did you have some noise going on behind you?
Yeah, sorry, my daughter was knocking on the window.
Oh, well, we'll just leave that at that.
Yeah.
Knocking on the cage bars, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the eye.
So how does Lorania respond to the idea that their privacy does not exist for anyone?
Oh yes. I just felt like that was very true when you were saying that.
Yeah, privacy does not exist for anyone and for any reason. All good things and all bad things can be seen. You may not be able to see them yourself, but other entities can see them. And this is common. This is something that you really kind of want to get used to, get yourself behind, because it's a truth. The other thing, Phil Karuba says the audio is 5x5. That's very good, Phil. Thank you for that. Thank you. 5x5. Military. The other thing with being observed that way is that you have the ability to know. Well, let me back up. When a being or a consciousness ties into your consciousness, or you look at another consciousness, say if you're in the astral, or if you're having Kundalini and you're having a vision and you're able to see an entity or some sort of a a consciousness that isn't tied to a physical system or a body, you'll find that it's an open street. It's a two-way street. You can see them, you can feel what they're doing, what they're thinking, things of that nature, and they can also see and feel you as well. And it's very, very interesting that your Laranya would have given you this experience with the thousands of eyes in your house, festooned all over your house, right?
Yes.
And I think that's very interesting as well, because even in our house, we are surrounded by enlightened consciousness. It's always there, waiting for us to notice it, to evolve to a place where we can notice it, where we can hold it, where we can understand it, and where we can actually emulate it in going into that direction. And I feel that that's what's occurring with you, Elizabeth. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, wow, that is so good to hear from her as far as that goes, and as far as expanding your. Let me retract that. It's not taking yourself out of being limited. Even though we are indeed given 5 major senses to navigate our world with and to survive in this world, we have jillions of more that are just waiting to be accessed. And in my experience, Kundalini is one of those major activators of the other senses that a person has to navigate not only this world, but the other world or worlds that a person may be introduced to through the awakened Kundalini. Typically, these skill sets are not accessed by those who don't have the Kundalini or who aren't on that track. So, for instance, what I mean by on that track, let's just say, I'll call the person Joe Bob. Joe Bob is on the enlightenment track. And so Joe Bob, as a child, is given very specific tests and very specific challenges that will continuously hone Joe Bob into becoming a person that is available for Kundalini enlightenment. So even before the spinal sweeps and even before the individual has a name for what is occurring, that person is being prepared for enlightenment or certain levels of it. And that is happening with all Kundalini people to some degree. And it differs with each person because each person has different karma. But this is happening. And so, what Laranya is saying, and let's all remember that Laranya is Spanish for the spider, and the spider is one of the forms that the Kundalini Shakti adopts in order to communicate with us in a way that we can relate to. And this is what Laranya has been doing with Elizabeth. And as I recall, and Elizabeth, you can correct me if I'm mistaken here, I believe Laranya started talking to you even before Peru, right?
Yeah, about a year before.
Right. So it doesn't take ayahuasca to develop, this positive relationship with your Kundalini. All it takes really is you doing the practice, and which Elizabeth does, and you, taking seriously, the things that are occurring to you, and not kind of like throwing it away by virtue of saying, oh, well, that's just my imagination, or, oh, well, that was just a dream, or, oh, that was just a coincidence, any of the other, ways that we can kind of invalidate the spiritual experiences that we're having. Don't do that. Validate it. That doesn't mean that you don't find the obvious reason for whatever it is, but the obvious reason is not always a scientific reason. We always jump to science first. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, if we were to jump to science with Elizabeth right now, well then, science would place her into a psych ward because she's talking to something called a spider. And it's so not true. I mean, Elizabeth is the sanest, most organized, most helpful, loving, kind, considerate person that I know, and and she is walking this talk. She is doing these things, and she. Oh, what's going on there? I'll have to put you in the blue again, Elizabeth. She is receiving the gifts of grace because she is honoring the gifts of grace within her. And I'll suggest that all of you do this. Every single one of you. I know that there's some that are listening right now that have had their Kundalini activated for years, even over a decade. Okay? But it doesn't have a perishable date on it. There is no number on the bottle of Kundalini that you are that says used by October 14th, 2016. It doesn't say that. And I'm just pulling that date out of the air there. I have no idea what October 14th is. So you really want to understand that you are absolutely unlimited, just as Laranya says through Elizabeth, that you are indeed unlimited. Do not settle for self-imposed limitation or culturally imposed limitation. This is what happens a lot on the world right now. Is if you're born a female, well, then you're limited in certain ways. You can't play you can't play the same sport as a man, or you don't get paid as much for the same job as a man, even though you're doing it better or just as well. There are these imposed limitations that I don't want you to buy into. Because with Kundalini, we're talking about individuals who are unlimited. Kundalini has unlocked that limitation box, and that person, even though they may be currently living within a culture that is limiting them, is essentially unlimited in their expression and their understanding of the different expressions coming from this world. Kundalini people are exceptionally unlimited. Exceptionally unlimited. Now, if anybody has a question for Elizabeth, I want you to feel free to call in. You can call in at this number. The area code is 347. The prefix is 934, and the number is 0026. So that's 347-934-0026. And you can call in right now, and for the next foreseeable future, the few minutes that we have remaining, to ask Elizabeth some questions about what her you can ask her about what Laranya was talking about limitation. Where are your limitations? How do you recognize that you're erroneously limiting yourself, and how do you correct that? Go ahead and answer that question, would you, Elizabeth, for our listeners? How do you correct, and this, ask Laranya this, how do you correct self-imposed limitation or culturally imposed limitation?
I wanted to say from myself, I tended to before I started doing the practice and everything to stop myself through fear. And I think a lot of people do that, and people do ask me that sometimes online. They'll see a face, it looks like an animal, it scares them. Those type of things, like other reality, because with the Kundalini, you'll see faces that flash in front of your eyes, and it scares them, and so they stop themselves from experiencing it, not realizing that you can, and what Laranya says is you can observe that, and you can be in that. You don't have to interact with that, and you don't have to let your fear stop you from that. Or things have happened to me since doing the practice these last few years, of where you're meditating and all of a sudden the top of your body and your head just suddenly disappears, and I would normally be afraid of that, and it would freak me out. But since learning from you and from everyone on the groups, I learned not to be, and this was even prior to Loranya, not to be afraid of that, to just experience it and not worry that, you're going to die or you're going to, whatever my ego tries to tell me. Or even with things like with low self-esteem, myself personally not wanting to post things or wanting to say anything or wanting to have an opinion, afraid that someone might not like me or those kinds of things, it helps me to, and actually Santara helped me the other day with something about that, of not letting your ego do that to you, not letting your ego tell you to stop that. Like, don't do that because this might happen, or you might be judged, or you might judge yourself, or you might, feel like you shouldn't have, don't do that, So I just wanted to say that. And then we receive help on the groups and from Chrism and from the other Kundalini awakened people all the time when we talk about these things and share our experiences. That's the only way we can know that we don't have to be afraid of those things, because they're going to come up.
Indeed.
You're going to find yourself in a room full of eyes, or you're going to find yourself tasting blue, or whatever it is. And you can't. And I would have never, ever found Loranya had I not been willing to stay awake for 8 days and then have a waking vision, because my ego kept trying to tell myself, you're going to die or something. You can't possibly not sleep for 8 days and still, live your life. But I did, and I could, and that's how she first came to me.
Excellent. Now I'm opening Santara up into this conversation. Santara, are you there?
Yeah, I am, Chrism. I'm here. Wow, Elizabeth, that was awesome. When you were reading, when you were telling us about what Aranya, communicated to you, it was like Kundalini was speaking directly to me, because stuff has been going on for me lately, and that spoke completely to me. I posted in the group recently that in some ways I've been rejecting the Kundalini lately by, closing my ears and my eyes and my heart to what she's doing with me, because some of the things that you spoke about there, the visions, the shapes, colors, the shimmering, all of that has been happening. Now it's been happening. I've experienced that before, but not to the degree that it's been happening. So it became quite overwhelming, and not so much that I was fearful, but I found it was like, the way we say walking in two worlds, it was like I was walking in 4 or 5 worlds at the same time, because I was awake. And I began to just reject, and I started to do, my ego began to, close down what the Kundalini was telling me. So, and that was putting limits on myself, and it took me, I'd say, maybe 10 days of a lot of this sort of thing going on before I began to say, stop. Stop doing that and open yourself up. Stop closing it off. The Kundalini didn't stop, you see. She didn't stop at all. She kept doing what she was doing. So, but it was like what you said about expanding the consciousness. See, Kundalini is expanding our consciousness, and it's a matter of not getting in the way of that, isn't it? And trusting it, and just stop putting limits on it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really mean it. Thanks. One of the things I was doing actually last week, or the week before, I was saying thank you. You know, when I was struggling a bit, I was saying, let's say I was going along a corridor and all the shimmering was in front of me, like a mirage, you know. And I would say, thank you, Kundalini, and, you know, please give me the teachings in a way that my consciousness can understand. But what was happening was my ego was wanting to understand, and Kundalini let me know that I'm to stop doing that, actually. That I'm to stop trying to push. Yeah. So that's why what you said really connected. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That when she said that, it hit me so much that I do that. I constantly do that. I always try to figure everything out analytically, and you just can't. And no matter how many ways she tells me not to do it, that's why she keeps telling me the same thing in different ways, because it's like, gosh, well, she won't listen to this way. Let's try to tell her another way. And, you know, so I think I'm finally getting it, you know. Hopefully.
And you know, and I think we have to get it, and then our ego is a bit behind that again, or at least mine is, you know.
Yeah, mine
because
too.
I think I condition myself into behaving a particular way. So even when I get it, I can still fall into the old pattern, but at least now I'm conscious of it, and I can self-correct quicker.
Yeah,
Which makes, and what Chrism was saying about privacy. Are you discovering, because this is really strong for me recently, about no privacy, and she's showing me stuff that, like, my ego doesn't really want to see. So, and I'm being told, well, you actually don't have a choice.
Right.
Is this? Yeah.
Well, okay, all right. I just want to say thank you to Elizabeth and to Centaura for accentuating this conversation, certainly about the privacy, but also about overanalyzing. I think overanalysis is a huge issue that people run into with regards to the Kundalini, because it's such an unknown and there are so few reference points. We want to know, are we being possessed by some ghost or what is it that's happening to us and why, right? I just want to thank you both for chiming in, tuning in. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Not done with you,
Thank
Elizabeth.
You.
Elizabeth, tell us more about why Laranya is all of a sudden coming to and through you.
Well, I don't know. I'm not supposed to analyze that. But all I know is after Peru, it just got so much stronger. My connection and my ability for these things to come through got stronger. And I don't know if it was partially the ayahuasca or just, because she wanted me, for that whole year before that, she wanted me to go. And so maybe the whole thing that my consciousness was expanded through that, and some levels of ego were, whatever. And so maybe I'm just able to get more now, or I don't know, but it seems like, there's still an ebb and flow always with the Kundalini, but it seems like the flow is stronger and longer, if that makes sense. And I don't know yet, although when I first got back, there was a huge ebb for a week or two, but we were processing. And then after the processing was somewhat, at least for that bit, a little bit done, then the flow comes. So maybe now I'm in for another ebb, another processing ebb will be coming.
Well, along those lines, and I'm going to change the subject matter a little bit here. What does your Laranya have to say about people struggling in financial debt, or they're worried about their, maybe they have loved ones that are ill or things of that nature? What does she counsel people that are struggling with those issues to do?
Well, coincidentally, I have all of those issues going on in my life right now, and what's
she saying for you to do?
She's telling me I'm not supposed to do anything. There is something more to it, and it will all resolve itself in the way that it's supposed to resolve itself. And all of my needless worrying and trying to plan and trying to, as I always do, like looking like, oh, years ahead, I'm going to need to do this, I'm going to need to do that. She's basically telling me I don't need to do that it's not up to me. So it never was.
Who's it up to?
I just like to think that it's up to my ego, but it's not. And even the thing with temptation or money loss or worrying about stuff like that, it's not in my power to do anything about it when that happens. And she wants me to know that it's for the greater good of myself when that happens. And I have to look at it that way, like this might be happening now, but it's for the better in the long run, sort of a thing.
Well, how does she counsel people, say, specifically with financial issues? I mean, what if you don't have a job and you're just basically living off of your savings? What would she have you do? Would she have you go get a job in the workplace and still try to have the Kundalini at the same time? I mean, what does she counsel a person to do that's being influenced heavily by Kundalini, and the money that they have is been provided by the Kundalini? What would she have them do?
She would have them follow what the Kundalini is leading them to do. So if it's not to do anything even for a period of time, or to just wait a period of time before going to, like, because you can go out and try to get a job, but if the Kundalini doesn't want you to be working and there's a specific reason for that, you're going to go to the interview and bomb. You're not going to get the job. It's just, she would want you to, I guess, sit with your Kundalini and meditate on what you should be doing. And it might not be working, or it might not be spending money or doing things the way you think or your ego would think that you should be doing it. Like
What it might also mean that you need to spend the money even though you're not engaging your ego or engaging the world or the culture along the lines that everybody else is, the 8 to 5 and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's good to hear. It's good to hear from her. Some of the folks on the chat room are talking about your spider, and C.L. Morgan he asks, you ever get spider bites around your chakras? They seem to like my third eye. Well, I see that really as Kundalini coming into your chakras. The spider bite, or the snake bite, or the wolf bite, or the these types of bites are very indicative of continued furthering of a Kundalini agenda upon the individual, Mr. Morgan. And so I would definitely begin to practice it a bit more. Practice those safeties, Mr. Morgan, if you can. So I want to leave you on, Elizabeth, because I think people might have a question. Oh, I see. I'm going to put you in the blue for a second, Elizabeth. Just a second here.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Now I have to scroll. Let's see. We have a caller, everybody. This is an unusual thing for us. I'm going to put Amelia in the red here. Amelia, hello. And
hi, Chrism. Yeah.
We're going to hover, aren't we?
Okay, we are. Here we go.
All right. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. Yu. Hello.
Thank you for the welcome. Peace to all. And I've read up on Kundalini, and I have a lot of questions, but there's some of the least spookiest person that I know. And I argue very well, and I'm more of a heart-based, logically balanced.
Okay.
I usually I keep being made aware of very special things, what most would describe as supernatural. And the blessing of it is someone that is very dear to me, beyond explanation of any conventional explanation, a wife or a companion, a soulmate, or what have you. We've witnessed many things together, and a lot of people will call it supernatural. And it has a lot to do with the time and love that we share for each other and being genuine. I actually am familiar with myself, my own energy, and my own voice. I know who's driving, and most of the time I'm okay. And when I stop acknowledging that it's just me and the universe, that's usually when I get into trouble. So I've noticed a lot of things. I've had actual physical visitations, and these were not lucid actions. These are not. I was in sober mind, and so was my companion, and we've been exposed to some things where it makes it very unfair for a lot of people, trapped in this, what they described, what has been grafted upon them as reality. I just wanted to know, what do you think of divine revelations and physical shared supernatural experiences? Which I have several.
I think the shared experiences do occur. People are on similar wavelengths. People have similar karmas, and they'll see similar things. So I think that is definitely possible. As far as divine revelation goes, well, I get that all the time. I'm getting divine revelation even as I answer these questions. When I start this program, I don't have a script. It's a stream of consciousness, right. And this stream of consciousness is all about the Kundalini in me answering the questions that you have, and so I feel that divine revelation is extremely, it's appropriate. It's happening all the time. Laranya with Elizabeth, that is divine revelation. Even I'm going to bring her on here. You with me there, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you feel about divine revelation? How do you feel Laranya comes through you?
I think it's exactly that. And I think that, the Kundalini is divine revelation. And if you think that you're getting divine revelation, you need to listen to that.
Now, the other thing, the other side of that coin, though, is entities can also contact a person in very similar manners as Kundalini can, although it feels differently for me. And they will tell you absolute lies. They will just corrupt the heck out of your process. So how are you discerning Kundalini from the entity?
Well, I think I've been told by someone who I respect and has proven to be a fortuitous master that it's me. And the things that I see, the reason why I see them and when other people are around is because it is me drawing that and making that manifestation, making that. But I actually physically touched the being, and my wife was there and saw me sitting right next to me, having contact with this being. Otherwise, if I didn't have the shared experiences, I would think I was completely crazy. I would check myself into the nearest mental hospital and stay there. However, it's just really unfair for people. They're so regular and they really contain and have the ability to be better than, because all that most are exposed to is just artificial. It's not real. And when you have something that's breathtaking, it induces fear because you can't wrap your mind around it, and others can't wrap their minds around it. It jars them. And I've had this is really one of the things in my life that I just cannot explain. And I've seen some parallels to some things, but it's a variety of things that I have seen, and I think there's a reason why I'm seeing them, and I think there's a reason why I'm taking part in some of the things. I've gone from being homeless to owning an 8-bedroom house in a matter of 3 months, and right now I'm running 14 condominiums, 13 apartments, and a pizza store. And, it's the moment that I've forgotten about all of my troubles and my stresses and truly thought about the things that I needed and I wanted in this universe. That the moment I forgot about it is when it crept in and I was that. So it's something that's definitely, Kundalini, Chi, soul. It's something that is very spooky, and it has a very, I can't say subtle way, but a very jarring way of manifesting itself. I just wanted to know, why me? Why is it that because I've get these pulses. And when I used to catch the bus, my friends were always amazed. I would just walk on the bus, and it was as if I was invisible. But I did it when I had that feeling. And later on, I learned to manipulate that feeling and sort of, bring it up and apply it to my life. And it works. And sometimes, it causes an outcome that I just completely, was blessed that I keep having these revelations, and the surety is shared for me. So when people talk about Kundalini and chakras and everything, and I try to translate it into what I know. I speak that language. I speak a whole lot of different other languages. And being able to see and be exposed to so many different language things leaves me speechless. And I know that there's something, but I just can't put my finger on it. I can't. I know it's in me. It's in everybody. But to manipulate it it's like a 50-50 thing all of the time, and sometimes it's 51. In either way, but I'm getting nervous talking about it. But I just want to say that that yes, there is something that exists beyond what popular science or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michio Kaku or all of these intelligent people have, but it's just so unfair because it's something that is greater than the logic of man, and it's something that is greater than what most people experience on a day-to-day basis, and like you said before, frequency. That is just such an important thing to me. And when I'm with my wife, and we actually, I've never, had an experience with someone, it's so profound as this, and it's kind of, it has the same signature of that energy. So I don't want to, sound confusing, but I'm doing the best that I can right now. And when it comes to that energy, that Kundalini, that life force, or that force in us that exists but is intangible, and it just, drags our bodies and our cells around, because none of our cells are with us still that were with us 8, 10, 12, 20 years ago. They're all gone. So there's some packet of information that's preserved, and that information is existence, and it's manifest in this universe as physical. But really there's nothing physical, and what we would see as mass has more space than it has mass. So, it's like there's something there. We can experiment with it, and even the experiments, just recently finding the Higgs boson and all of these different experiments that they're using to find out these weird, illogical properties of the universe. And to me, I think they're bordering along the spooky path. And I just hope that they're careful with it, and because I've learned when I tap into that and focus in on it, that it is dangerous, and you should have a proper knowledge of self, because it can make you crazy, it can make you do crazy things, it can make you hurt people. And in closing, because I can go on about this subject, but in closing, I make sure that I stay in the mind and the perception of bettering myself and helping others, and that to me is better than hurting people and doing nothing for myself, any day. So that Kundalini is always good when my heart is in love and I'm feeling positive and good about things, and I've learned on the flip side, when I'm bad, it's still there, but it can cause repercussions for me and my family, and I don't want to deal with repercussions in situations. I'm about building, excelling, graduating, uplifting, moving up, having success and being victorious. Those are the things in my perception that I will use in my existence to manifest in this universe. I'm just saying that it really is no reason for anyone to be upset, to be down, because there's more to life than what you experience and what you exist. And if you get so down, you're killing yourself, and some people kill themselves, you never get to experience it. And if you don't know yourself while you're here and now, when you die, you won't know yourself. You that packet of information that you've dragged around, it doesn't not exist. It doesn't not exist. It doesn't disintegrate and degrade. It's the true essence of that is you, that has dragged around these cells connected with the body all of this time. So it's not the cells; they may be little tiny blueprints of you, but it's something about the frequency. Maybe it travels through the nervous system that makes you you. It's that frequency that makes you you. So when you cut your hand, eyeballs don't grow back where you cut it. Even the cells say, hey, let me put this kind of skin right there, because that's where I am in the body. So it is conscious where it is in the body, and it's a shame how most of us are unconscious in our own bodies. and the things that we see in our faces are just but illusions because of the programming that we can't seem to shake off. But I'm a shut up man, and thanks for having me.
Well, no, thank you for calling in. And I would, if I were you, and you were open to it, I would certainly look into exploring Kundalini as a vector of spiritual expression through you. But it sounds to me like you're very happy with life and how things are going for life. And I think that, the other option for you is to take care of your condominiums and your pizza store. Make sure that this pizza store is supported by the condos and the different houses that you have there. Give them a discount. But as far as one of the things that you mentioned to me was about fairness, and Kundalini is absolutely not fair at all. You can want fairness till the cows come home, but she's not going to give it to you. And I'm going to ask Centaur and Elizabeth to give you, Mr. Yu, some feedback on what you were saying. Go ahead, Elizabeth Centaur. You are in the red.
The only thing I was just going to say something that stood out to me was when he was saying, sometimes you can manipulate it, sometimes you can't. Well, I think that is kind of an illusion that we try to tell ourselves. I don't think, the Kundalini is, make no mistake, always in control. And what he said is so true, when you try to go against that, when you're helping other people, when you're full of love, when you're serving humanity, serving the planet, the Kundalini is going to support that. And when he was saying when people are negative or people are doing the opposite of that, I think what he's really saying is, and it's so true that the Kundalini is not going to support that. There are repercussions for that. If you're going out and hurting other people and doing things like that, that part stood out to me. And so just those two things, because it was a lot, but those are two things that stood out to me about you cannot manipulate the divine. And if you try to do that, it just isn't going to end well. Best that you surrender and let the divine take the wheel, so to speak. And, and always for love and for the higher purpose, you're always going to have more backing that way for sure than if you're going the negative route. Those are the two things that stood out to me.
Santara?
Yeah, they stood out for me as well. I heard you say, why me? And it occurred to me, well, why not you? And in saying, well, why not me? Within that, then surrender to what is being done, to what you are seeing, to what the Kundalini is doing. And when you think it's unfair, surrender as well, because as Chrism said, it can be unfair. And sometimes it's unfair because we don't want to surrender. We don't want to accept what is being done. We want other people as well to see what we are experiencing and to believe us. And that in some way, is our ego wanting to establish stuff that the Kundalini has no interest in at all. So we need to let that go. And we can't manipulate it. I agree with Elizabeth there. We must allow the Kundalini to manipulate us. I loved what you were saying about, when you are showing love, when you are being helpful, and when you're giving service to people, that's when everything is going well for you, or you feel good about what's going on. And I think too, that's a form of surrender too. And service really, I think, is what we are here to do. And if you're in a position to do that, and if you are financially able to support different ways of being of service to people, that's a real blessing. And I feel, that's not accidental. And also the Kundalini reveals I told my Kundalini, I had heard about divine revelation years and years ago, and I never really understood it. And we do an awful lot of reading from our holy books, the Bible, the Quran, books like that. But that's not my personal divine revelation. The Kundalini gives us each divine revelation. And we need to really surrender to that and believe it and trust and let go of what it is that our conditioning and our ego wants to do. So why you? Why not you? You. And thanks for calling in.
Yeah, and thank you both for responding to him, putting you in the blue here. And I'd also like to thank Elizabeth for staying on longer and for giving us some feedback and some background about what happens with her and her experiences in her house with the eyes and the different aspects of the questions that I asked her. So thank you, Elizabeth, for that as well. Looks like I'm going to travel on over to Minnesota here. Hello, Minnesota. I believe this would be Joey's phone number. Hi, Joey. I am being told that you have a question.
It's not in my head right now.
Well, there's a question mark right next to you there, so I'm not sure how that got there. But you don't have a question.
Get back to me.
Okay, I'll come back to you. So there we have it, folks. There we have it. Now, Mr. Yu, he asked some very provocative questions, and I'm going to also respond to some of them as well. You can have spiritual phenomena without having Kundalini. Plenty of people don't have Kundalini, and they, transform themselves into a channeler or a medium or, some type of a person that is engaging spiritual awareness. So you don't have to have Kundalini to have phenomena. However, if you do have Kundalini, then phenomena is something that typically will happen for the individual. I can tell that Mr. Yu is not Kundalini activated or awakened. He's looking at controlling the divine, manifesting in a certain way that he's comfortable manifesting, regardless of how perhaps his karma is going, or regardless of how perhaps the Kundalini would have him do that. And surrendering to the divine really is the best option. And it doesn't matter whether you feel that you deserve a certain thing, or you deserve a certain lifestyle, or you deserve to be treated in such and such a way. It doesn't matter at all. Kundalini is not fair. She doesn't care about our cultural expectation of being treated with fairness. She will treat you with the amount of fairness that your karma determines that you have. And it's your karma and your Kundalini that will determine the amount of fairness with which you're treated. And your ego and your expectations don't really get to have a say in that. Now, this is typical with Kundalini. With a person that is not, being actively engaged by the Kundalini, well, then, of course, you would expect that policeman to treat you, the same way in a similar circumstances they've treated other people. You can have that expectation of fairness. It's just through the Kundalini, it's not as honored as it would be, say, like from a policeman or a doctor or a dentist or a teacher or, somebody that is within the 5 sense sensitivities without engaging or having the Kundalini engage them. Kundalini is not a spiritual force that opens itself up to manipulation. It doesn't open itself so much to being commanded by the individual, commanded by the soul. And I agree with Elizabeth. Kundalini, Elizabeth or Amelia, I forget which one said it. Kundalini is divine. And so God does not necessarily, divinity and God equals, one consciousness, at least if you're looking at God in a singular format. So God doesn't necessarily need your ego's help in helping you direct your life in the way that God sees fit to direct your life. Now, if you are doing the good things, as Mr. Yu was talking about, being helpful to other people, being service-oriented to other people, well, that often does engender specific levels of rewards to help a person continue along that path. But that is once again under the determination of the Kundalini itself, and it is the Kundalini or God or higher spiritual vibration that will actually encourage a person to do these things, to listen to that angel on their shoulder rather than the devil on their other shoulder, and to decide that yes, I will do these things. I will buy that person lunch without letting them know that it was me. I will open that door. I will give that person a smile. I will let that person be a little late on their rent. I will support that pizza store in the most, in the most commercially sound and ethically high moral way, that I can. This would be my suggestions for you, Mr. Yu. So you did say a lot. Now, as far as having shared manifestation, yeah, that's, people can go out of body at the same time and see similar scenarios. That is not so unusual, except within the population of those who are sleeping right now. But within those people that have the Kundalini, as Mr. Morgan was saying, earlier, ever get spider bites on your chakras? They seem to like my third eye. Well, I think a lot of people can either get spider bit or snake bit or wolf bit or any kind of a Kundalini creature that the Kundalini will manifest within that person's conscious environment. Can provide those little bites, those little things that come along like a bee sting or a wasp sting or something of that nature. And this would be considered shared phenomena. Not shared phenomena the way Mr. Yu is talking, where, he and his wife are sitting there and both he and his wife, are able to perceive a consciousness sitting next to Mr. Yu. I think that as you get married to, say if you marry a psychic, well, and you're not a psychic, well, through the years, you're going to pick up some of those psychic senses. I don't think that's unusual. And that's very common within the Kundalini equation as well, is if Mr. Yu and Mrs. Yu were sitting together and living together, loving together, living their lives, well then, if one of them had the Kundalini, well, that would also spread to the other spouse as well. This is fairly common within the Kundalini world. And with regards to the scariness aspect, to be afraid is a choice that people make. It's not necessarily something that you have to embrace. Our ego gets scared when we get some sort of a life endangering type of situation coming upon us. So if we see a spider or we see a snake, well then of course, at first we're going to be afraid because we're looking at the preservation of the body, the preservation of life. But once we realize that we do not need to be afraid of those creatures, because first of all, they're not there to harm you. They just look like they could. The serpent looks like it could harm you. The spider looks like she could harm you. And you just need to not buy into the cover of the book. You don't be afraid or fearful of the cover of the book. Don't be afraid or fearful at all. You can be cautious. Cautious is not being fearful. Cautious is maybe a little bit more of a logical approach. Logic, maybe not. But to be cautious is to allow yourself to be convinced one way or the other that that this spider, this snake, is not going to harm you. And so to be cautious is a perfectly legitimate quality, within Kundalini context as well. But you don't need to buy into fears of a spiritual nature, fears that of being haunted, or maybe Mr. Yu doesn't like having that consciousness sit next to him in the kitchen, and even though his wife can see it. And so with many of the spiritual phenomena, if you take fear out of the equation, it is a much, much, much nicer experience. If there is an entity that comes to you that is promoting fear, well then, you have to understand that is a promotion of fear. That is something that is generating or trying to generate fear within you, and you just change that channel. You don't need to buy into that at all. And so I would like to thank you, Mr. Yu, and I agree with much of what you said, and if life is good right now for you, Mr. Yu, if life is good for you right now, don't explore the Kundalini. Seriously. It sounds to me like life is good. You've got an 8-bedroom house. You've got other buildings that you're responsible for. Heck, you've got a pizza restaurant. So you can have pizza whenever you want. Think about that. Hopefully it's organic, free-range, breast-fed pizza. But if life is good right now, don't explore the Kundalini. Stay away from that. And the other thing I noticed is this Kundalini is not chi. Kundalini is about as different from chi energy as an airliner is different from a star supernova. It very, very different levels of energy, very, very different forms of energy, and that goes with some of the other energetic forms that you mentioned. Kundalini is very, very different. It is self-aware, and it is conscious, and it is of a divine nature. And this is something that people with the Kundalini really need to understand. It isn't chi. It's not Reiki. Okay, it's not dynamic touch. It isn't any of these things. It is its own special gift of grace upon us and within us. So thank you again, Mr. Yu. I appreciate you joining us in the program here. And I'm going to come on over to what I believe is Rosemary. And hello, Rosemary.
Hello, Chrism. And hello, Mr. Yu. I was thinking of you here as I listened. I'd like to invite you, Mr. Yu, and your wife to our Minnesota Kundalini seminar that's coming in July 9th and 10th. And it will be in a very special place. It won't be in a hotel like it usually is, but it will be in a prairie that is maintained by the couple who owns it, and they also have
a restored prairie.
Yes, and also they have in their on their place, people can be camping if you like. Plugins are available. We have a meeting room and other important things in this very large barn. It's just amazing. And it will be always a Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5. And my information is rosemaryg@usinternet.com, 651-452-3161. And I can send you information, the details, to everyone who is interested. We look forward to this happening. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Rosemary. And I just want to say that Marcy and Bob, who own the property, this is in the middle of nowhere, in a way, in the middle of Minnesota, and this is among the cornfields and the soybean fields and all of these things that society has decided nature does not need anymore, that land. And, sorry. To turn this off somehow. Yeah, just what I need. some sort of spammer on the phone. Decided that nature no longer needed that land. Well, Bob and Marcy decided that, hey, maybe nature does have a place in our society, and they have a creek running through their property, and they restored the creek, and they let the prairie return to its natural form, its natural shape, natural trees, natural grasses, natural plants, natural animals. They're not hunting the animals, they're not killing. I mean, this is a very, very, very nice place and an appropriate place to have a Kundalini Awakening seminar. So I would like to invite anybody and everybody who feels like camping in the middle of July, which is kind of cool, which is nice because it won't be too cold, or who feels like, sleeping, in a normal bed type of scenario, because they have those there as well. And what Rosemary means by plug-ins is if you have an RV or a trailer or something like that, then they have the facilities that can bring electricity to that. Or if you have a tent or something of that nature and you want to run a heater or your computer or something like that, they can provide you with electricity. You might want to provide yourself with an extension cord, however. So thank you, Rosemary.
Yes. We do have rooms that are available also in the little town of Cannon Falls. So a block on rooms in a couple places. So there are people who would prefer that. So
very good. And thank
all
you.
are welcome.
Thank you for making the announcement, Rosemary.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Here we go. And then I'm going to come up to Santara, and I believe Santara also have an announcement that she needs to make. Hello, Santara.
Yeah, but I would like to say something because, if you live in Europe and you're listening to Rosemary, telling about the seminar with Chrism in Minnesota, and you wish that you could go, but it's just too far away, well, 2 months later, September the 3rd and 4th, in Berlin and Germany, there is going to be a seminar with Chrism, and maybe you could attend that. So that's the first weekend in September. That is going to be organized, and Manisha is going to be organizing it. And in May, she's going to have further details. But in the meantime, if you would like to express an interest and receive information about it as it comes online, drop me a line to kundalinimatters@gmail.com, and I will make sure that you're kept in the loop with information about that. So then, as well, listeners, if you listen every week that I make this announcement, and I want to thank you for listening. And as most of you know by now, Chrism thus far works on a donation basis only. And I have a few announcements that I want to make about donations. The first one is about an email that I received last week. And I have received similar ones before. So what I want to do is just read out a portion of it to you. And I'm quoting now. Can we donate a little bit, like 10 to 15 US$? Some people do not have good earnings like me, but they do not have good earnings like me, meaning I don't have good earnings, but they want to donate, but they feel the shame of a small donation. And what I want to say, and what I said to the person is, please know that there is no shame whatsoever in giving what that person is calling a small donation. $10, $15 is a very, very welcome donation. And as I've said this previously, small donations add up, and they will greatly support the work that Chrism does. So yes to that person, and yes to anybody else who is wondering the same thing. There is no shame. Please feel free to donate any gift, no matter how small you feel it is, because it will be received with love, with gratitude, and it will indeed make a difference. So thank you. The other thing that I would like to say is that sometimes I'm contacted, and I was contacted during the week by somebody who was trying to make a donation on Kundalini Awakening Systems 1, that main website that Chrism has. It's a Yahoo group. And they were telling me that the donate button is not working there. So just to let you know again that the donation button on the Yahoo group on www.kundaliniawakeningsystems1.com hasn't worked for a long, long time. And it's just beyond our control to fix that. We're not able to remove that button currently. So if you would like to make a donation, and people go to that site, because that's where Chrism has the Kundalini safeties, and they see the donate button, but it's not working. So I would just like to make the announcement that if you want to make a donation, just come over to this website instead. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And I think that's it, the announcements for today, Chrism. Thank you. And whenever you're ready, I have questions.
Well, I totally agree with you, especially with regards to the amount of a donation. There is no shame. I don't care if you send a penny. There is no shame. There is no shame. And you are helping me help other people, and that's the bottom line. So the more people are able to give, and the more people I can help. But the scenario is there is no shame in any kind of donation. And there's no shame in not even making one.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am. Oh, hang on. Let me check in with Joey here and see if she actually has. I'll put you in the blue for a second, Centauro.
Okay.
And Joey. Hello, Joey.
Well,
how are you?
I'm not sure this question is pertinent to what we're discussing, but I have been wondering, I have to admit it's my least favorite part of the practice. What is the purpose of the pranayama?
Oh, the pranayama. I explained that to you guys at the Minnesota community meeting, but I will explain it to everyone here. On the upper lip of each nostril, there is a terminus point for a very, very, very long chakra. We'll just call them a long chakra. And these chakras, there's the feminine is called the Ida, and the male is called the Pingala. And the termination points at the upper nostrils are what the pranayama is all about stimulating. And as you stimulate the portion of the nostril through the pranayama, very, very, very specific health benefits will occur for the individual. Now, will it occur the same way for everybody? No, because everybody has different health issues and, along with different karma. But it will stimulate those two very, very long chakras, what I also term rivers of grace, because they go around. They're very long. They start from the base of the spine, and they circle around each of the chakras, and then they finally come around. They go up over the eyes and then down the channels between the eyes, and they terminate at the upper lip, about 1/8 of an inch inside of each nostril, the upper lip. You'll find that sometimes if you overstimulate through pranayama, you'll get a little acne or a little pimple or a little blemish of type that are right on the terminus point, and you'll be able to geographically locate that very clearly if you have a little sore there. The pranayama is very healthy for the body physically. Okay, it's very, very healthy for all of the organs, for the muscle tissue, for the bone tissue, the bone density, everything. But within a Kundalini context, the pranayama stimulates more Kundalini into the system. So if you look at the safeties, you're doing the 5 Tibetans, and hopefully you're doing them 21 times, spinning to the right, blah, 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 all of the different 5 Tibetans, which is a form of vertical yoga that is bringing more Kundalini into the system. And then you follow that up with a good, 5 or 10 minutes of pranayama, and you're bringing more Kundalini into the system. And then you follow that up, let's say, with a devotional practice, which brings more. Every practice that you have within the safeties protocols is designed by the Kundalini itself. By the way, the Kundalini wrote the safety protocols. Kundalini wrote that. And so Kundalini is giving you a very clear recipe on how to bring more of itself into yourself. And that's the reasoning within a Kundalini context for the pranayama to be practiced, Joey.
Oh, good.
It's a very, very healthy thing to do.
I didn't realize it had a health influence too.
Oh, big time health influence. And don't forget, if you're clogged up in there, I believe you said you had a clog up in there somewhere, right?
Partial, yes.
Yeah, just do the single nostril breathing. Whichever you can do the most effective, then do that. Okay. And it will over time that will clear up that blockage as well. Or I'll do it when I see you next.
Which will be in July.
Yeah, early July. And I'm looking forward to it, my dear. Late June, early July.
We all are.
Oh, I hear your clock. I hear your beautiful clock chiming away.
Yes.
Well, thank you, my dear. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the blue. I think it's an excellent question. And I'm going to go ahead and take some questions from Santara here. Hi, Santara.
Well, I'm going to jump to a question, actually, that's related. It says, is it not a must to practice the safeties before starting indulging in pranayama?
Well, the safeties, pranayama is in the safeties. So if you're doing the safeties, then you're doing pranayama.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now there was another question about. It says, are cords from me to other people real? And I noticed that there was a post of one of your teachings about decording, and I think it might have come about because of that, Chrism. It says, are cords from me to other people real?
Real?
R-E-A-A-L.
R-E-A-A-L?
Are they real?
Are they real? What is real?
Cords.
Cords. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. First thing, no, I understand what you're saying now. Yeah. Okay. Courting is real. It can be a very positive thing. So if you have a teacher, like a flesh teacher, then you can cord with your flesh teacher, and you can begin to pull energy and information from that flesh teacher, as long as that flesh teacher's Kundalini allows it. You can pull that in, and you can learn from it all the time. I was talking to a student today. It's like, if you have a teacher that's alive, well, that teacher is never separated from you. You are never without that teacher. That teacher is always there with you, if you choose to have that occur. So courting, and I always spell it. They spell it C-O-R-D-I-N-G. I spell it C-H-O-R-D-I-N-G. I put it within the musical formatting, because there's a harmonic that is occurring, a frequency of harmony that is occurring between, say, the teacher and the student. Within that chord. Now, others say less ethical valuation, they'll chord you to try to manipulate you, to try to siphon energy away from you, or to coerce you into doing something that they want you to do that perhaps you wouldn't do on your own. And then they'll use a chord to try to do that with you. And it's so easy to get rid of chords. You just cut them. You just... Blog Talk is telling me that it just dropped Santara, so she'll be coming back. You can just cut the cords. And you might see a little bit of blood come out of them, kind of like a vein or an artery or something like that. And that's just fine. Let that bleed. But cut the cords if you don't feel that person has your best interests at the heart of what they're doing with you. Well, you just cut that off. You don't have to have that. It is not something that you must do. Courting another person is just, it's kind of a lower technique, and I use lower because you're dealing with physical issues. It's a lower technique in manifesting an outcome. And whether the outcome is coercion, getting a lot of, oh, there she is. Okay, hi, Centaur. Whether the outcome is coercion, whether the outcome is, a positive teaching, whatever that may be, it is a lower format. It's like picking up an orange instead of using telekinesis. You're picking up an orange with your hand. You're still picking the orange up, but you're just not using the higher qualities to do it. So, for instance, when I'm teaching a student, I don't need to put a cord onto them. I just look at them. I can even just say their name and give a very specific lesson to the person. And it's not Chrism, the consciousness, that is doing this, the ego consciousness. It's Chrism's Kundalini that is doing this. Okay? So yeah, and I want to say thank you and good night to Phil Karuba and to C.O. Morgan because they just, said that to me. So it's very important for people to understand that courting doesn't need to happen, but it can happen if the individual wants it to happen. Over.
Okay, Chrism, thank you. Okay. What time do we have? I'm just wondering. Okay. I want to ask...
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question. It was on the group. It's about aliens. It comes in the context, of a Kundalini person. I'm seeing aliens all the time with my inner vision. Once I saw an alien standing in my hallway. It was like my third eye overlapped my physical eye. I am seeing pictures of alien implants. I saw a human bone with a rectangular bright red color. After searching online, I could recognize most of the alien types, and I saw a picture of an alien implant that looked like the one I saw internally. Now, what does this mean? Am I being told I have an implant in my head, and could that contribute to the severe head pain I am having?
Yes. Yes, it could. The alien, entities, and I guess it's an ET. ETs are real. They're alive. They can often they'll come along and they'll do some sort of experiments on unsuspecting people by putting in an implant. And a lot of these implants, because of their technology, have almost like they just have the ability to manipulate the human energetic anatomy in a certain way. It sounds to me like that person is being burdened with that type of a scenario. And what I'm going to recommend they do is to feel where that pain is emanating from, and to put some sort of a metal barrier, like a skateboarding helmet or a cycling helmet. If you put metal on the inside of it, and I refuse to say tinfoil, even though that's an effective barrier, because of the people wearing tinfoil pyramids and running around the country going, I'm enlightened, I've got a tinfoil pyramid hat. Now that would that would work.
Well then.
It's just hard to get away with that in society. But the entities do this. Yeah. Even with Kundalini people, they try to stick implements onto them, and you just don't want to buy into the whole alien thing. You don't want to get a lot of fear about it. You don't want to get a lot of attention on it because you don't want to attract that type of thing. It's just another form of parasitism. So it's just like having an entity that instead of using a cord or some sort of a program that is, inciting fear, well, they're actually putting in a chip or some sort of a device that our science cannot see as of yet, sticking that into your head and wondering, okay, if I turn this dial, do they feel pain? Oh my gosh, look, they're flopping around like a fish out of, they must feel pain. Okay, we'll turn that dial down. They're just doing little experiments on people, and it is not ethical, but other sentience doesn't necessarily have the same level of ethic that the human being would imagine is appropriate. And so just the same way that we're testing on white mice and white rats, well, so are humans also being tested upon. And then I think I'll just leave it at that. Over.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that implant.
Sure.
I mean, can you do something to remove that, or is it also like should you just ignore it?
Sometimes it's really hard to ignore because they're causing you pain. And this isn't pain from the Kundalini. This is not pain that you necessarily need to be learning now. You may have given permission for these creatures to do what they're doing to you before you took the body, but that's a real hard case to prove because who in their right mind is going to say, "Oh yeah, I gave permission to these ladybug entities to put a device inside my head that will be causing me pain when they turn a dial." It's a very difficult thing to admit to, but people do give permission in these ways. You can ask your Kundalini to mess with it. The Kundalini can definitely mess with it, just like it messes with computers and watches and cell phones. It can mess with an alien implant as well. It can actually, it can make it go dark. Just turn it off in a sense. So if you have the Kundalini and if you have that type of an issue, well, then you go ahead and you begin that conversation. Or you can go to a Kundalini. I'm being shown this too. You can go to a Kundalini awakened person like Santara and say, "Yeah, Santara, I think I've got an alien implant that I'd like removed," and she can ask her Kundalini to remove it for that individual as a form of service. So it is. You go down to John of Gods. A lot of people went down to John of Gods to get alien implants surgically removed, and John of God, with the entity inside him, would surgically remove specific alien implants. And a lot of these implants, like Art Bell had some implants. He's a radio show host that is no longer hosting a radio show, but back in the early 90s and the mid-90s, he was sent some alien implants, and they literally have anti-gravitic abilities. They have abilities that go beyond our current level of physics, current level of science. And so you almost need to have the Kundalini at this time remove them, or somebody like John of God remove them, or another doctor that would that knows how to remove them. They're fairly, they're like little bits of silicon that's wrapped in bismuth, that is wrapped in, what was the other component? Bismuth, silicon, certain types of metals, and they sandwich that all together, and it forms anti-gravitic properties. So it's kind of cool on the one hand, but the way they're being used is not so cool. Not so cool.
Yeah.
Over.
Not if it's your head they're implanted into, sure. Okay, next question is straightforward. What is grace?
Say again?
What? Maybe it's my phone. Let me pick it up. What is grace?
What is great? Grace?
Yeah.
What is GRACE?
Yeah.
Okay. What is grace? Grace is divinity. Grace is the divine. Grace is also a cool girl's name. Grace is Kundalini. Grace is that which is of the divine or the divine itself.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a few questions together, Chrism, and there's three. I'm going to read them together. Okay.
Go ahead.
How do we perceive dreams? Do animals dream? And in some religious and mythological books, animals had psychic powers. Were those animals Kundalini activated?
No. With regards to dreams and the dreams of animals, if you're coming into the Kundalini, then specific animals will have specific traits. A spider will have specific traits, specific color, specific size. Same with a serpent. Same with say a wolf or a dog or a cat, whether it's a little tiny house cat or a big tiger. Will determine where you are within the Kundalini with it. You're to interpret animal dreams based upon your ability to understand. If you're inside of the Kundalini, well, then you'll have the ability and the reference points to understand an animal presence in your dream state within a certain level of reference information. So if you have the Kundalini, you have that reference information. If you don't have that, the Kundalini, then you'll have to interpret it along the lines of a totem or totemic type of interpretations, or something that is of a non-Kundalini type of understanding. Over.
Well, they're actually asking you, do animals dream?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're wondering in the mythological books. Okay, and in the mythological books, animals have psychic powers, and are they? Did you say no? Those are not activated, Kundalini activated.
Animals do not typically. No, in a way, animals are Kundalini active all the time, but they don't have the same kind of psychic skills that a human would have. They might. Okay. I mean, so for instance, and I would like to go to Elizabeth for this. Coming to bring Elizabeth on here. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Go ahead and ask Laranya if spiders use a certain type of song to attract insects into their web. I think they do. So she's checking with Laranya right now, I believe.
She's saying yes, but it's a frequency.
Oh, they emit a frequency. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But you could, I guess, call it a song.
I do believe that animals do have some psychic skills, but they're more aligned with survival, teaching humans, than they are for the animal's own purposes. And now, of course, survival for their own purposes. And I'd like to thank Elizabeth and Laranya for that answer there. Thank you, both of you. And I'll put you into the blue here.
I suppose, Chrism, that animals have what we would see as maybe psychic skills, and that, their intuition, they're able to see things that we're not able to see.
Right. Like Lasha. Lasha can see the entities, and she'll track the entities.
Yeah.
But that's not a psychic skill. That's something that we would consider a psychic skill. But to her, it's just a normal functioning, there's an entity going across the scene.
That's true.
For them, it's no big deal. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from the group. Have you advice on how to deal with solar storms? When they happen through the night, I become unsettled and I can really feel the energy inside.
Well, let me tell you.
Solar storm.
If you didn't know there was a solar storm, would it affect you? If you didn't have the internet going, oh yeah, there's an X-mass ejection event from the sun right now, big solar storm occurring. If you didn't have the internet telling you that there's a solar storm, are you having a problem? Let me tell you, solar storms don't really mess with Kundalini people because Kundalini people aren't necessarily completely of a physical expression. What are you doing there, Samantha? Are you walking all over the kitchen? What are you doing in there?
No, Chrism, I'm not. I can't even make the tiniest sound. Forgive me, that's the end of it.
Just finish making the sandwich and let me know when you're done. So yeah, like an X-class solar storm. Now it would have an effect upon Kundalini people with regards to shutting down the satellites that are circling the world and therefore interrupting internet and banking interests and all those types of things. Sure, indeed. But with regards to the natural expression of the sun and its natural expression upon the earth and the natural reception of those expressions by a Kundalini person, it shouldn't be keeping you up at all. I think there's something more of an egotistic variety type of thing that is causing you to have that. You know, you go online, you go, oh yeah, there's an X-mass ejection event happening, and you're thinking about that, and you're going, oh my God, that all those particles are like bombarding the earth right now. It must be having something terrible happening to my Kundalini right now. It's like, oh my God, I've got a headache. You know what I'm saying? And so it becomes a self-fulfilling problem.
Yeah. And you know what I think it does too? I love the dramatics. What it does too, I think, though, is it takes responsibility away from ourselves. We're able to, blame the old solar storm there for, maybe our temper or, if we lose control of our emotions. We can go, oh, well, couldn't help it there.
Put the tongue up. See, they can put the tongue up behind the upper front teeth and might, solve the problem. But no, solar storms are not. It's just like no. I mean, Kundalini is not strictly of the physical. It's physical, divine. Okay, and so, we're not really going to have a lot of problems with ejections from the sun, unless, of course, it incinerates the world, and then everybody's got the same problem, Kundalini or not. But no, but let's talk about solar storms coming from quasar 0.9146 A195. That could be a very, very powerful quasar that is pushing particles, subatomic particles our way that we don't even know about. And oh my God, could that adversely affect us because we have Kundalini? I guess. But is it something to be concerned with? No, because first of all, it's not in your control, number one. And number two, you're being changed into a pseudo-divine person. This is not the same thing as a strictly physical person. Half of you is in heaven and half of you is on the earth at the same time. Okay, and so a lot of people, I get this from empaths quite a bit. It's like, oh, Chrism, I'm so sensitive that I can't stand on a street corner because the frequency that is changing the light from red to green is just causing me all kinds of problems. And I'm just kind of going, get over yourself. You're not that sensitive that you're picking up the frequency of the light change from the traffic light. Okay? And if you are that sensitive, then you need to move out of the city anyway. The scenario is that Kundalini doesn't weaken you by coming to you and giving you these. It doesn't weaken you by making you more sensitive. It strengthens every part of you. And it may strengthen your sensitivity, but that doesn't make you weak because you're your sensitivity is being strengthened. It makes you stronger because your sensitivity is increased to the degree where you can discern more information. People just want to, sometimes I feel there's a level of ego aggrandizement involved with sensitivity. They want to be seen as super, super sensitive, and therefore, because of that sensitivity, they're super, super vulnerable to the environment. It's like, no, I'm not buying it at all. Not in a Kundalini context. That's just more kind of like a backward way of coming at self-aggrandizement. Over.
Okay, Chrism, thank you. There are one or two more questions. There's one about decalcifying the pineal gland or the pineal gland.
Let's talk about that.
We need to finish.
The pineal gland
Okay.
is not getting calcified, and hearing hard cracking in your skull is not the calcification being broken through by the pineal. No. I'm sorry. I know I'm stepping on a lot of toes here. People just love that whole calcification of the pineal gland, DX. The diagnosis is yes. Well, Mary Jean, in the chat room, Mary Jean, I'm sorry to have to let you know this, but your pineal gland has been calcified. You just had too many glasses of milk as a child, and I'm going to have Vincent come on over and with a hammer and a maybe a sledgehammer. I don't know. But we're going to have to crack open that pineal gland. I'm sorry, but to get through that calcification, please. I mean, now I know they did some autopsies on people, and they found that there was some sort of a mineral attachment to people's pineal glands, but not Kundalini people.
I think fluoride, isn't it? Fluoride in the water is blamed for that. Am I wrong?
Right. Well, we shouldn't have fluoride in the water anyway, but I'm pretty sure it's not calcifying people's pineal glands. I think that's just another New Age stretch that I'm not going to buy into, and I don't suggest any Kundalini people buy into that, except of course Mary Jean, who has that calcified.
But anyway, isn't it true, Chrism? Even if that was the case, even if it was rock solid calcified, that wouldn't stop the Kundalini.
It wouldn't.
No.
Not even close. Not even close. So yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it. So Chrism, we've got 2 minutes left.
Well, say your last words, my dear.
Okay, I enjoyed the show very much. Loved having Elizabeth on. Elizabeth, when you're not working, I hope you'll join us again. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary, Joey, everybody in the chat room. I know people are listening on their computers. I want to say hi to Helly and people who are going to join us in the archives later on in the week. Goodbye and see you next week.
And Elizabeth, any last words for you, my dear?
No, just thank you so much for the show, and thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this for so many people and helping us.
All right. Well, everybody, I would like to thank everyone, just as Elizabeth and Amelia did. I'd like to thank you all for joining us, those in the archives, the future people that are hearing us in the future. I'd like to thank you for joining us there. And, of course, everybody in the chat room and everybody who's left the chat room and everybody who's called in on the phone, Mr. Yu, Centaura, Rosemary, Elizabeth, Joey, and whoever that host is. I'm going to end it the way I started it. And many blessings to everyone.